Hey there, it's Tessa. So have you ever traveled on your own or gone solo, gone on a solo road trip maybe, or perhaps took a holiday on your own or vacation? Well, I hadn't until I moved back to England, and it's been quite a change for me. I never thought I'd be brave enough, quite frankly, to go out and travel on my own, especially to a new country. But it's surprising what you can do when you have a little bit of motivation or when circumstances kind of push you in that direction. My first real solo trip was going to the Algarve, and it was in January. And after we had a really cold, wet August, I said, I'm not going to be able to make it through the whole winter without going somewhere. So that was what my push. I booked a holiday to Portugal. And I think you have to have that strong desire. And solo travel is not for everybody. I talked to a new friend the other day, and she said, nope. I'm not going to go by myself. I would have to have somebody else there. And I was like, but. And she goes, nope. So I think it helps if you're a bit of an introvert anyway, and if you're used to being on your own. I've been spending a lot of time on my own since moving here, and I've really gotten comfortable with it. And that includes going on solo road trips around the UK. But yeah, taking that flight, taking that leap to go to the Algarve in January was something new for me. This is something I want to do, and I didn't have anybody to do it with that I wanted to go with, so I made the plans on my own, and you can too. And it wasn't that difficult. And I want to share my experiences with you so that maybe if you were on the tippity edge of maybe deciding if you could possibly take that leap on your own, maybe this will help you decide. If you are traveling on your own, you are more likely to be a woman. Yes, 80% of all travel decisions are made by women. Now, I always did the travel planning in any relationships I've been in, and I think I'm pretty good at it. I enjoy it, and I think maybe it's an area where men are not quite as confident. The average US traveler is a 47-year-old woman, and women are traveling solo more often than men. That probably comes as no surprise. According to Rhodes Scholar, 85% of solo travelers worldwide are women, and 64% of travelers worldwide are female, with men coming in at 36%. This is according to Condor Ferries, which is based in the UK. So that's a lot of folks traveling on their own, a big higher percentage of females. And 60% of those female travelers are married, but they travel without their spouses. 42% said their spouse isn't interested in travel, so they decided to go out on their own. So that's kind of what I've thought. Almost every man I've ever spoken to about it, or I've mentioned that I've been on a trip on my own, said they just don't like to travel on their own. They feel kind of awkward and find it sort of unrewarding and slightly uncomfortable. Here's what no one tells you about traveling solo. You get to choose the destination and itinerary that you want. There's no compromise. Number 2 reasons is you're more likely to try out a new language and get to know the local culture when you're on your own. Easier for me to interact when it's just me. Let's say I go into a shop or a restaurant. I've got my little Google Translate and I make my garbled attempt to try to speak in the local language. And it's a lot of fun. And I think you do have more opportunities to do that. If there's 2 of you, you tend to speak in your language and kind of exclude the third person. Number 3, you get to be the star of your own show. Yeah, if your partner is more gregarious, like my ex-partner used to be, you never make connections with people because they're always the first one out there talking. Or yeah, I think it's easier to kind of strike up new conversations if it's just you. I rented an Airbnb in France, and the lady met me, and then her husband came along, and they couldn't have been nicer. They invited me to park separately in their garage at their home, which was about a half a mile away. And they also invited me into their home, and I ended up spending an hour or so in there. So I don't think that would have happened if I had been part of a couple. I think, that is one of the joys of traveling solo. And also do what you want when you want, right? You don't have to get up at dawn for breakfast like if you're in a tour group. I did that on my last trip, and there was a couple mornings when I needed to get up early, but I didn't have to get up at like 7 a.m. to be on the bus by 8, that kind of thing. You don't have to be stuck on a bus at all if you don't want to. Everything is your choice. You can really pick your own itinerary. And you can also go with your own flow. This is one of the things that I really like. You can rest when you're tired and stretch yourself when you feel like it. You can really rest and relax when you want to. And then when you're ready to go, you can just go. You know what? The other thing is great is that if you have a budget that you know you're comfortable with, you can stick to it. There's nobody saying, oh, come on, let's do this. Nobody pushing you to do more than you feel you can afford. And if you're with somebody else, you might feel some pressure to go outside of that budget. And you can also follow your own passions. You know, this kind of ties in with being able to do what you want and do your own thing. But, you know, if you're into photography or something, you can just go for it. Shopping. You can shop till you drop if you want, if you're on your own. You can do what you want. Now, honor your purpose. You know, if maybe, you know, there's a place that you've always dreamed of going, you know, it's been kind of on your bucket list all your life and you thought, oh, I really want to go there. Well, you don't have to wait for somebody else to do that. You can go on your own. And I find it very freeing. I kind of get into this Zen mode where I don't really think about the fact that I'm on my own. I just kind of go ahead and do what I want to do. I don't really bother whether I don't think anybody really pays attention anyway. So nobody really cares if you're there by yourself. I don't feel self-conscious. And I think that's maybe what a lot of people are worried about, being on their own. They may feel a little self-conscious, but nobody really cares, especially over here in Europe. So is this making you wonder if maybe you could fly solo? Well, you know, I think we get a lot of mixed messages in the media. That's kind of an alliteration. But, you know, on one hand, we're told, oh, connections are really important and relationships are really important and people live longer if they're around people. Yes, that's nice. But if you don't have that option, what are you? Are you screwed? No, you don't have to be. I think creating relationships, yes, is healthy. But being alone can be healthy too. I think you get to seek a relationship with yourself when you're traveling solo. You get to really honor yourself and really find out what it is that you like. You know, I think when you've been in a partnership or a couple, a good part of your adult life, you kind of lose touch with who you are and what you really want and what your desires are. But when you travel, you can go, you know, you can just go for it. And I think traveling on your own can be seriously addictive. I know I'm starting to think, you know, it would take a lot for me to join a tour group now because I kind of like to be able to do my own thing. So I hope that kind of encouraged you to think about traveling solo if you haven't already. I still think there's a little bit of a stigma about it, but those who have tried it know that it's well worth overcoming any fears, any doubts, any reservations. I am definitely a convert to solo travel. I didn't think I would be. There are so many positives to it, and that's what nobody tells you, how great it is. So yes, you can go with a group. You can go with a group as a solo traveler, and that may be a way to get your feet wet until you kind of get ready to take your training wheels off. But trust me, if you do make the effort, I think you'll find it really rewarding. Spending time with yourself, especially out in the world, is a great way to get to know yourself better. And it's a great way to honor yourself. It's a great way to experience life in the moment. I always feel like I'm really in the flow when I'm traveling, and especially when I'm on my own, because you can hear everything, you can see everything, you can, you know, taste everything. It's a very immersive experience. I like to just go and soak it up when I'm traveling. So I hope that was, like I said, a little bit inspirational. And if you've got any, you know, stories about solo traveling yourself, I hope you'll share them in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I will hope to see you on my next video. Take care of yourself in the meantime, and bye for now.